Kalimera, Hinekes, which means, good day, ladies. It's I, Jess, from No Way. Tell me everything. I'm so happy you're back today. I have a solo episode to share with you, and I hope it's something that you can relate to. It is about releasing guilt and shame. Now, we've all been there. Am I right? So I think that you will relate to this on one level or another. I always say this, I'm gonna try to keep it short. We're gonna be dipping our toe into the somatic pool today, Jess's somatic pool. There will, of course, always be spirituality in everything I do, but today it's gonna be a lot more about like the practical releasing of guilt and shame, hopefully. Hopefully, she says. But what I also thought could be nice is to do like a little lovely visualization, standing with our younger selves and giving them compassion at the end of the episode, right before I do the cards. So I hope you'll stick around for that. Obviously, please don't do that meditation if you're like driving, operating machinery. Don't do the meditation. Why do I always get a frog in my throat? La 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 la. And people ask me, hey, what's your podcast like? Let me show you. It's ridiculous. All right. Stay on track. Okay. I'm not going to be doing any witchcrafts today, but I did dress like a trad wife, if you're watching. And I don't say that with any shade, because I fear sometimes I say stuff and it maybe sounds shady, and it's not. I am a trad wife. I make my own jelly, for God's sake. I make my own bread. I make my own gelatin for my children. Like, I'm a trad wife. I love that life. But I don't normally dress like it. Today I'm dressed like it. I got my nice green flowy peasant top on. There's a bird fight happening across the roof. What is even going on today? Okay, let's talk about releasing guilt and shame. So a lot of us carry guilt and shame with us throughout our life. And if you grew up with a religious background, you especially probably have some sort of programming around that you deserve this guilt and shame because you did something bad. So we're going to start reframing things by every time I catch myself saying doing something bad, I'm just going to say doing something that you wouldn't do now. Let's do that. Because I think the first step to realize this is we all carry these feelings around with us as if we are the only person in the world who does things that they would never do now. We're basically conditioned from a very young age that there are things that are bad to do, and when you do them, you're a bad kid or you get punished, right? So you start to internalize this shame around what is good and what is bad. And of course, there are things that affect people negatively, that affect society negatively, that affect yourself negatively. But if you do those things, there is always the chance to expand, to grow, to choose differently. But the problem with guilt and shame is that even if we choose to do differently in the future, even if we learn the lesson that the outcome of whatever we did was not good for us or for others, and we don't want to do that again, we don't want to do that behavior or make that mistake again, you should just let it go and grow from it. But because of the way that society talks about those things, the way that religion talks about those things, we internalize this feeling of, I did something bad, and I now have guilt over doing that bad thing, and I carry shame with me as well because I even did it in the first place. And these emotions somatically sit in your lower abdomen area. So if you're facing problems with your digestion, with menstrual cramps, if you're someone who menstruates, with pain in the lower abdomen, ovulation pains, like any sort of gas, bloating, cramping, constipation, diarrhea, like those things can be results of internalized and blocked energy around shame and guilt. Now, of course, as always, I'm not saying that that is necessarily the reason you have issues with these. Make sure that your doctor has checked out that there's no medical explanation. But for example, let me give you like a very good somatic example. When you do something that makes you feel shame, I guarantee that you feel that down in your gut, and it might give you gas. It might give you diarrhea. Or if you think, even now, if you think about something you did that you're not proud of, that you wish you hadn't done, your stomach probably drops out, because that's where we hold that energy. We hold it in that sacral root chakra area, which is your lower stomach. So if you have issues here, it could be that you're holding on to it. A lot of times, what we do is we bury that. So because we felt so much shame about something we did, we repress it and we bury it and we try to convince ourselves that it didn't happen, or we try to completely forget about it. But the thing is that the body does not forget. So when you store emotions like that, you have not cleared them out. So when you're older, you will often find that something might pop up. It could be when you start doing healing work, or it could be out of the fucking blue. You suddenly have a memory of something you did when you were younger, and it comes with so much shame and so much guilt. I will give you a very benign example, because sometimes I also think when we talk about holding shame and guilt, we think of these big catastrophic things of like, you really hurt somebody or you ruin someone's life or something. And yes, those of course will cause you those emotions. But when you're a child, you have to think of the scale and the relativity to what you're living in. So things can happen that cause you shame and guilt that as an adult, you're like, geez, that's not a big deal. But as a kid, it's huge. Like when you lose your mom in a store and suddenly your whole world is turned upside down and you're an orphan now and someone's going to kidnap you. I mean, maybe this is just what I experienced because my mom was very anxious about those things, but that's not a real reality for most kids, but that's the way that your child brain thinks about it. So you can hold shame and guilt about something that really is not a big deal, and that maybe you did something to somebody that they don't even remember, right? So a very benign example was I held a lot of shame and guilt about when I was in kindergarten. I stole a bird, like a fake bird, from the little altar thing. So I went to what's called a Steiner school, and as part of our like daily kindergarten thing, the teacher would make these really lovely, like I'm calling it an altar. I don't think that's what they call it, but it was like a little area where they would make these little like landscapes with like, you know, little gnomes and felted things and wood and, Steiner stuff. So like nature. And then we would all get to enjoy this little cute scape that the teacher had made. Well, there was this little fake little bluebird thing, and I really loved it. And one day when everybody was out at recess, I took it. And I don't think that I at that point really realized that that was something that you couldn't do or you shouldn't do. I just wanted it and I took it. I think I was like 5. Um, but then it caused this whole thing in the class because the teacher realized the bird was missing. And so the day after, she was like, "Where's the bird? Let's all look for the bird. Must be around here somewhere." And it was in that moment I realized that I'd done something wrong because I had taken it and I obviously was not supposed to take it. So I snuck it out, put it back on the altar, and pretended that it was just there. I don't know. The teacher definitely knew that I stole it. But the whole point of that long story was that little Jess logged that as a shameful, guilty experience. I stole it. I was guilty. Actually, now I'm remembering another time I stole something from a store. But again, I didn't know that I was not allowed to take it. I wanted it. My mom said I couldn't have it, so I just took it. But then she made me take it back and give it back to the store manager and apologize. And then that was, of course, when I realized that I had done something really bad and guilty. So those little things, if you don't clear them out, like if you don't have a parent, and this is important to know if you're a parent, if your parent doesn't basically say to you like, "Hey, we all make mistakes. It's okay. You didn't know what you're doing. You didn't mean to do that. You don't need to feel bad about it. Now we know better and we're not going to do it again. It's okay." If you don't have that, you're going to catalog that. And then it kind of is exponential because every time you do something, it compounds. And it is inevitable as a human being that you're going to do something that you're not proud of. You're going to hurt someone's feelings. You're going to say something that you don't actually mean that ends up hurting somebody. You're going to choose yourself in a situation that ends up hurting other people. There's so many ways that we can do things that we're not proud of. But the end result is that, especially as we get older and depending on what belief system you're raised in, what kind of family, what kind of society you're raised in, the amount of guilt and shame you hold in yourself over that will be influenced by that. And so you basically form this big black knot hole in your lower stomach of guilt and shame. And if you try to repress it and try to forget about it and never think about it, just shove it down, it, like all things, it'll pop up. In my head, I just saw like when you have one of those boogie boards in the pool and you try to push it down and get on top of it, like you can get on top of it for like a little bit and then it's going to fly back out and hit you in the face, right? That is exactly how repressed emotions work. And with guilt and shame, I think we've probably all been there. You're lying in bed, can't go to sleep. All of a sudden, your brain's like, hey, remember that really horrible thing that you did when you were 17 and that girl did that thing and then you did that thing and she was embarrassed and everybody called her poop face for the rest of high school and you feel really bad about it now? Like, that's exactly how it shows up. And depending on, I want to say the severity of what you did, but it's really the severity of how you feel about what you did is how much it's really going to affect your anxiety, your mental health. The reason you obviously don't want to hold these things inside of you is because, number one, a lot of times we feel guilt and shame about things that we've done to people that the people that we did them to, that we feel we did them to, don't hold. So there are definitely situations where, like, I was bullied in high school. I remember exactly who did the bullying and I remember what they did and how it made me feel. But as an adult, I don't hold any feelings against them because we were kids. Like, you're able to look back and be like, was that really shitty? And did it make my life really hard in that moment? Yes. But, we were young. They had their own stuff going on. I've now grown from that. Like, but this person, for all I know, lays in bed until 2 a.m. and thinks, God, that time that I did that thing to Jess was really horrible, you know? So a lot of times we put a lot of emphasis because we are the center of our own universe on things that we did that other people are just not doing. They're not holding those same issues. So that's one thing. The other thing is, obviously, as I talked about somatically, it can cause physical issues because what happens when we suppress emotions and store them in the body is when they cannot be released and felt, they manifest in physical symptoms. So it can start to show up first in like minor things like I talked about. It could be constipation, diarrhea, nausea, cramping, really painful periods, issues like that. Like, that's kind of the first warning signs with our emotions is you'll start to feel that sinking feeling in your stomach. Then you'll start to have physical manifestations of it. But if you keep repressing and you don't release and don't feel in it, there's a possibility always that these things build into full-blown diseases, where that anger, that guilt, that shame, it starts to show up as a disease in your body. There's a saying in the somatic world, and when you're learning about somatic work, that disease is dis-ease. There's, of course, medical aspects to it. So I want to make sure that it's really clear that I'm not saying that there's no medical reason that you have a disease. But when you are storing emotions in your body, they can trigger the gene. They can like turn the gene on. It's part of epigenetics of things we inherit from our ancestors. It doesn't mean the gene is turned on, but when you repress these things, when you hold them, they can kind of flip the switch and they can turn the gene expression on, and then the disease shows up. So you want to get to them before the disease shows up because you can still work on somatic stuff. Hold on. I feel like this must be hard for me to talking about somatic things because my throat chakra is very blech. We're going to do it anyway. I'm making it work. I will get this out. So help me, goddess. Once the disease shows up, it doesn't mean that you cannot work on somatic. It's not like, oh, time has passed. Now you just have to deal with it. Now you have a disease. I mean, you have to treat the disease medically, of course, now that it's appeared, but you can still do the somatic work. What has been shown in somatic research is that when you work on the disease, even after it's shown up, the severity of the symptoms, sometimes even regression of the disease itself can happen when you release these things. So that's why somatic work is so incredibly important whenever you're doing any of this work that I do, or this healing work, or even manifestation, because you have to release these things from your body so they don't show up as physical expressions. And we all know, if you've been listening to my podcast, that they also show up in other ways, which I'll get into when it comes to nervous system and also co-creation or manifestation. So you want to get rid of these so that you're not holding on to them. And especially because it's like an onion. So you just keep layering onto it. And whatever false belief you hold in yourself, great segue to subconscious reprogramming, will continue to be reinforced every time you add to that. So the other issue is that you hold a belief in you tied to this. So I'm going to use an example of religion because for Christianity, for example, we're told that doing certain things is a sin, right? Or you do bad things and then you have to be absolved, or you have to give it up to God and be forgiven. And then you have to repent or do penance or do something. And there's this underlying guilt and shame in a lot of religion depending on how you grew up with it, also with society, that people who do things that society or religion deems as bad are bad people. And when you hear that enough times, especially when you hear it from a very young age, it cements as this belief in you that because you did something quote unquote bad, you deserve bad things, you're a bad person. And that starts from a very, very young age. And I would say, feel into yourself if what I just said, if you felt anything in your body when I said that. You do bad things, that means that you are a bad person and therefore you deserve bad things to happen to you. Because a lot of us hold this belief in us and we don't really realize it. So if you're always waiting for the worst possibility to happen, you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop, you're always not at all surprised when something bad happens to you, or you're hoping for something good and it doesn't happen and you just go, well, of course, because good things don't happen to me. You probably hold this belief in your system that you don't deserve it. There's also an ancestral line that can live in you where maybe if you look at the people in your family, whether it's father's side or mother's side, maybe there is a belief that's coming through generations of we did something bad and therefore we deserve bad things. Or it could be flipped. It could be even just we don't deserve good things. But the opposite is always the medicine. So if you have a belief that you don't deserve good things to happen to you, if you're not good enough, if you're not worthy enough for good things to happen, you probably hold a belief that you deserve the opposite, right? It's a flip-flop. It makes sense. But that all comes into like when you try to co-create and when you try to manifest. If you have this belief in you, good fucking luck. Good fucking luck. Because everything consciously can be on board with, I am a great person. I deserve this thing that I want. I deserve this big career move. I deserve this promotion. I'm going to be the freaking CMO or CEO or CFO or CIO or any of the C's. I deserve this big opportunity. I deserve this role. I deserve this money. I believe in my dream that I have of creating this business, and I know that this is the right thing for me, and I'm going to go after it. You can consciously be after all those things. You can agree with all those statements I just made, but if your subconscious, if your body, if your energetic body, if your subconscious mind holds a belief that you don't deserve those things, good fucking luck. Because self-sabotage. You're going to constantly, whether it's consciously or unconsciously, be self-sabotaging yourself. Because the root of the issue is, you might not realize it, but you are punishing yourself. You are not allowing yourself to have these amazing things because you've internalized that you don't deserve it. So you will continue to punish yourself. And it's really detrimental. I mean, obviously, as I'm saying these things, I hope you're listening and going, wow, that all sounds insane. Because it is. It is insane. But we tend to punish ourselves. And again, most of us live in societies where you're punished for bad behavior. Your parents, maybe you grew up in an age where spanking was a thing, or you had abusive parents who punished you, whether that was, verbally, physically, whatever. Our society believes in punishment. But the issue is that using the word doing something bad is problematic because there are opportunities to grow. You do something that has an outcome that is not what you would want. It's not for someone's highest good. It's not for your highest good. That is the outcome of something. And then you have a choice. Do you continue to do that thing knowing that it's harmful to yourself or to others? Or do you grow from that experience and learn that that is not something that's in your highest good or for the highest good of others? That is the difference. If you change your behavior after doing something, whether it's the first time you did it or the 5th time you did it or the 20th time you did it, if you change your behavior eventually, you are not a bad person because a bad person wouldn't change their behavior. Now, did you have a period where you were not acting in your highest self, in your highest self-worth? Sure. We all have those periods. I'm going to call mine my 20s. We all have those periods, but I have so much compassion because I look at myself like a child back then because that's what I was. I was completely operating from an absolutely wounded animal of an inner child, and a lot of us have this same thing. And so does it excuse the things that I did and the people that I hurt? No, it doesn't. But it does hold a different view for me of you literally were doing the best that you could at that point to survive with the knowledge that you had and what you felt you needed. You could not have chosen differently in those moments, because in those moments, that felt like the only possible thing you could do. If you truly look back on yourself with compassion, you again won't agree with the things you did because you've grown and you've evolved. But can you see how you were just trying to survive? You were just doing what you thought was going to have the best outcome for you or not? And did you grow? Because you have to choose when you look back and you want to truly forgive and let go of this guilt and shame. You have to look back and say, am I going to continue to punish myself or am I going to grow? Because you can't do both. If you keep punishing yourself for something that you did, you're going to stay exactly where you are because you're keeping yourself stuck in that version of yourself, in that loop. There is a version of you that you are holding on to that you cannot let go, and that one will keep you in that time period, in that version of yourself. Do you want to be that version of yourself forever? Do you not want to, live the life that you actually deserve because you're punishing yourself? Or do you want to grow and release those versions of yourself with love and say, I learned so much from this period of my life. I learned so much from this action that I did. And now I expand and grow from that. Because you cannot make these changes you're thinking of if you feel the need to punish yourself still. And I think you can see, maybe you have someone in your life or you've read stories about people who had this insane potential. They had so much potential, but they never acted out their potential. They never fully claimed their potential because they had done something that they considered unethical or unmoral, and they weren't allowing themselves to move on because they felt that this is what they deserve now. This is what I deserve now. I did something bad. I've ruined my whole life now, and I deserve nothing good from this anymore, from the rest of my life. And it shows up in really strange ways all over, even when you start to repress that feeling and you start to try to move past it. If you don't release that fear and guilt that comes with it from a somatic perspective, even if you think, oh, I understand now, cerebrally. I keep saying I realized I say a lot. I feel like it's my version of and like. Damn it. It starts to show up in really weird ways when you don't release it, because you can cerebrally grasp a concept, right? That's when people talk about knowledge versus embodiment. Okay, so knowledge is power, self-knowledge is empowerment, and self-knowledge in action is embodiment. So you're stuck in that middle phase of you're aware of your situation, you want to forgive yourself, but if you don't do the embodiment and actually release it and actually feel it in your body that you truly forgive yourself, you're still repressing the emotions, and it will show up in strange ways in your life. So I want to get into the meat of the conversation now, which is how do we effectively release these things? Because like I said, it's one thing to start to remember or be aware of the fact that you're holding on to guilt and shame, whether in your body or in your mind or whatever, but how do you actually get it out from a somatic perspective? So here's where I'll include like a little bit of the spiritual side of things. So there's a lot of different ways that you can release shame and guilt from your body. The most important thing is that you get it out of your body. So how you get it out of your body is completely up to you. Everybody has different ways that resonate with them. So the first thing I would recommend is to do some sort of guided meditation around releasing shame and guilt. I'm going to do one with you here at the end of the episode so you can try out like a very small mini one. This is almost like a mix between subconscious reprogramming and affirmations, because we're going to try to calm our mind enough to replant some seeds around new beliefs that are not based in punishment, but based in growth. So it's kind of a mix, but you can find shorter ones. You can find some that are just like 5-10 minutes. You could do them every single day. You can do breath work. I'm a breath work facilitator, so I know that I'm biased, but breath work is one of the absolute best ways to release emotions from your body because it moves the energy as well. So when you're holding things in your body, you're holding them physically in your body, but you're also holding them in your energetic layer of your aura, right? Your ethereal body. So you want to release them from there too, because you can dance it out. Like you could do somatic dancing where you imagine these emotions moving through your body and coming out through your feet or coming out through your hand or breathing them out gently or whatever. You can do all that. You just want to make sure you also get it through the energetic body. And breath work is just very, very amazing at breaking through energy blockages and helping us to fully not only feel in our body where things are sitting, but actually feel the sensation of removing them. And there's something that does to your brain when you can feel the emotion leaving your body that seems to be very effective in my experience versus if you just do a visualization or meditation. They're lovely, they're relaxing, they're helpful. It's kind of the first step or also the reinforcing step. So like just because you get everything out of your body, let's say there could be some like residue or some gunk left over. So it's not usually a one and done situation, especially because depending on how old you are and how difficult your life has been, you might have a lot of shame and guilt built up in there. So it's something that takes some commitment to it, and visualization meditations can be really good reinforcing steps. But I feel that breath work is extremely helpful for this. So if you want to do a combination, because I do understand that not everyone has access to breathwork instructors where you do like a full hour of breathwork. There's not that much breathwork on Spotify that I found anyway. I don't know about YouTube, but I would say if you can do one in person, do it in person. It is an extremely different experience to doing one online, also because you're with other people. And scientifically, there is something that happens when people are syncing their breaths and their heartbeats. It's called heartbeat coherence. And energetically, I do feel like more change and transformation is released when you are with other people who are working on something together with the same goal, the same breath work, the same heartbeat. But of course, that's not accessible for everyone. So you can do online or you can combine a meditation. So if you found a meditation about or a hypnosis session about releasing shame and guilt, what you could do is focus on breath work. So one thing that I do a lot when I do my sessions with people is to do circular breath work. So circular breath work just means that there is no pause. Like unlike box breathing where you do inhale 4, hold for 4, exhale 4, hold for 4, or any variation of the count, you're doing like a hold at the top and a hold at the bottom. What you want to do with circular breath work is there's no hold. So you're going to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Now, how long, how many counts you decide to do is very much up to you. I always say to start with 4 in and 4 out. And so as soon I'll do one so you can kind of hear it. But once you do it, you just kind of keep going. Like imagine you're playing a didgeridoo, if you've ever heard that, like that circular breathing. It's not quite that. But hopefully you understand. Like you just keep going like a circle. So you're gonna go in for 4 and out for 4. And you do that over and over. Make sure that you breathe in as much as possible and breathe out as much as possible because you want to overload your body with oxygen and empty out all the carbon dioxide. So you're also going to breathe fully into your belly. You want to breathe in starting all the way down at the bottom. So you're going to breathe in belly and then pull it up in your chest and then chest first and out from your belly. You can also just put in some really nice music and do circular breathing and just start to feel your energy move and start to feel how it's moving. Set the intention of focusing on releasing your shame and guilt. Again, you never know what's going to happen. Spirit gives us what we need. So maybe there's some other area that you need to release first, but set your intention and try to just focus on your breath and see if you can feel your energy start to move. If you start to feel pressure in your lower stomach where your shame and guilt sits, that's great. As long as the breathing is comfortable for you, keep doing it. I will say there's usually like a threshold where it starts to feel uncomfortable because that is your body's survival mechanism, your protective mechanism of the fact that it doesn't want you to go through these feelings. So it's basically like your subconscious almost is going to be like, whoa, things are coming up here. This is scary. Try to get through it. Unless it starts to feel like it's okay if you feel a little dizzy because, again, you're taking in way more oxygen than normal and you're releasing a lot of carbon dioxide. However, if you start to feel sick or are having trouble breathing or anything like that, just return to your normal breathing and take a break. But if it's just because you start to feel a little buzzy and different and maybe some things come up and your brain's telling you like we should stop, try to push through it because that's where you start to release the energy. So breath work is fantastic. If you like ritual stuff, which I love to do, I like to write down everything that's making me feel guilty, shameful, write down any free thoughts that come up around it. And then I burn that using like tongs or a fire safe bowl, a fire pit, burn it carefully, hopefully outside or in a safe area, not like anywhere dangerous. I love that I have to give these examples. So thanks to the lady who spilled hot coffee on our lap and sued McDonald's. We're all here because of those people. Um, so yeah, just burn it. Another thing that you can do is when you are with a full moon, if you want to do a ritual or witchcraft, you could write down everything that you want to release that you're holding on to and again, burn it. Or during a new moon, you could write down all the new beliefs that you want to center into yourself. And you can meditate with that. You can do visualizations with that. What I would probably do there would be to write everything that I want onto the paper, sit with it and meditate, put my energy into that paper, my intention of anchoring these things into myself, and then put that under a glass of water in the new moon and then drink the water in the morning and discard the paper, either burn it or rip it up or bury it, whatever kind of resonates with you. But that's a ritual way that you can do it. Some more somatic ways that you can work through that are singing. So again, I was talking about my throat chakra earlier. It's all better now, by the way. And again, I think that comes from the fact that these things are hard to talk about. So they can block your throat chakra. If you find that each time you want to talk about something around your guilt or your shame and your throat starts getting really scratchy and really stuck, or there's pressure, it starts hurting, that is a physical manifestation of what's going on in your body somatically, in your energy. And a lot of times when you can sing or chant and visualize those worries, those emotions leaving your body, you will find that that pressure eases up, that you release whatever's going on in your throat chakra. Like if your throat hurts all the time, you probably have a throat cold. But if it's specifically when you start talking or thinking about these things, it's definitely tied to the energy surrounding that. And you're basically trying to protect yourself by not letting it out because you're worried about what will happen, but let it out for sure. And then another somatic thing that you can do is you can do exercises, you could do yoga. Pretty much any movement somatically is really good. Go out in nature and talk to the trees, tell the trees and the nature spirits what's going on. Now, there is something to be said about releasing it, getting it off your chest to someone else. But there's a few things I want to make clear about this because I do feel that we hold ourselves back sometimes from releasing the shame and guilt because we're very worried about how it will affect the other person and maybe our relationship to the other person. And I don't want this to hold anyone back because first of all, sometimes it's not helpful to tell other people what we may have done, especially if they don't know that we did it or it's a really long time ago and it was something painful. It won't help. It might help you release that, but it won't help the other person. It could make it worse for the other person. So really question, is it responsible for me to put this guilt and shame onto someone else? Because sometimes that is what you're doing when you tell someone else what's causing you guilt and shame. So I understand that sharing it with the person that you feel you have wronged can be very therapeutic for you, but it's not necessarily therapeutic for the other person. It's putting that onto them. So just be very mindful of why you want to do it. Do you want to just release your guilt without having any thought for how it's going to affect the other person? Then that's not very responsible of you. But you don't have to confront or tell someone what you think that you did or that you did that hurt them in order to clear it. If you have any friends that you trust very much I hope you do, who love you unconditionally, share it with them if that's something that's comfortable in your relationship. There's also support groups I'm sure you can find or communities where you're able to anonymously or via your own voice and your own identity share whatever's holding you down so that you can get it off your chest. But ultimately, I also just want to make sure that you understand that you can say it as often as you want. It will release the shame hold on you. It will because yeah, it will release the hold that shame has on you because the more we speak about things, the less shame we feel about them because they're not holding it inside internalized. But again, it's kind of like, are you shame spewing on other people? I think the important thing to remember about guilt and shame, first of all, is these are not inherent emotions that we have from birth. Guilt and shame are accompanied by learning rules, conditions, beliefs, things that tell us we should feel guilt or we should feel shame. So the first thing is to question, should you actually feel guilt and shame about these things? Why are we carrying guilt and shame about this? This is okay. This is totally normal. This is a normal part of adolescence, or everybody does this at one point in their life. Like, it's just basically, part of growing up, or it's almost like a rite of passage, right? So it is good to realize that guilt and shame are not inherent emotions. They're not like anger or sadness or love that come from within us, from our actual needs. They're put upon us by society and religion and our parents and our peers and things like that. The other thing to realize is if you do feel guilt, that is actually a very positive thing in the first instance, because it means that you are holding yourself accountable for something that you did that you feel is that you shouldn't have done, right? Again, should you actually feel guilt over this, or is it fine? But if yes, you should feel guilt over it, then that's already you showing some growth, because you know that you did something that's not okay. There are a few people in this world I think probably don't feel any guilt about the really horrible things they did, because they are what I would call bad people. There are bad people. I hope if you're listening to this, you're either not one of them or you're on your way to not be one of them. But there are bad people in the world. That's a truth. So there are people who don't feel guilt about the absolutely horrible things that they've done to other people. And that makes you different from them. That just means that you are not a bad person because you feel guilt. So guilt means that there's an ability to grow, because you realize that there is a problem there. Shame, on the other hand, shows internalized judgment of yourself, usually. So once you feel guilt, then you feel shame about it, because you're judging yourself and you're holding yourself in a critical light. And again, you just want to make sure that you're really grounding in this idea that the only way out of this and the only way to release guilt and shame is through love for yourself. So without further ado, if you are driving, please don't close your eyes. Also, maybe just don't listen to this, because I don't think I have the most hypnotic voice, but I would really hate for people to be out there driving like Grand Theft Auto while we're trying to remove guilt and shame. So we're just going to do like a very quick 5-minute releasing guilt and shame reprogramming. This is not a deep dive, because that would take much longer. This is hopefully just like a little amuse-bouche for you of kind of what you can do. And if anything comes up for you after you've done this, you can journal it out, talk it out with somebody, sing it out, do whatever feels good for you, or ponder. So if you are safely sitting or something, where a place where you can close your eyes, I would recommend that you sit down, close your eyes, get comfortable if you feel okay with that. Place one hand on your heart and one on your belly. Take a deep inhale in through your nose and a long sigh out of your mouth. And you do this 3 times. Now I want you to say silently to yourself, I am safe in my body. I am safe to feel. Now, we're going to do a little bit of somatic body release. So I want you to begin by shaking out your arms, shake your legs, your shoulders, turn your neck from side to side, bounce your shoulders up and down. Maybe if you're lying down, kind of windshield wipe your legs or bounce your legs in place. Just kind of imagine that you're like fully trembling, like you're really shivering. We're gonna tell our nervous system to release, to calm down, to get out the stress. And then I want you to take a deep inhale. And when you exhale, I want you to make a sound. So you can sigh, you can moan, you can growl, just whatever sound wants to come out. Take a deep inhale. Release whatever wants to come out. If your body is feeling heavy with shame or guilt, just imagine that you're shaking it all right now. You're pushing it out through your hands and your feet into the ground. And when you're done, place your hands on your heart and let your body soften. And now I'll just gently guide you through a subconscious deep dive. So with your eyes closed, if you can, breathe slowly in through your nose and out through your mouth, deep down into your belly. And I want you to imagine you're inside yourself, inside your inner world, and you see a staircase. I want you to imagine walking down this staircase, one step at a time, into a safe, warm inner space within yourself. If there are 10 steps, you're going to step down 10, 9. What does this space feel like? 8, 7. Can you smell anything or hear any noises? What's the temperature like? 6, 5. Deeper and deeper down inside yourself. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Inside this space, I want you to invite your younger self, the version of you that's carrying guilt or shame, and just trust whoever comes. Even if this is not the version you had in mind, trust that whoever is showing up now is the version that needs to be seen. And I want you to see them clearly. Can you see how they feel? Can you feel their emotions? And then I want you to walk slowly up to them. Take their hands, look into their eyes and say, I see you. I love you. You are not bad. You were doing the best that you could. And then, if it feels comfortable, you can give them a light hug or hold them in your arms and allow them to express their emotions to you, to release whatever they're feeling. If you need to pause here so that you can allow yourself more time with this version of yourself, please do. When you're ready, I want you to repeat these phrases to yourself 3 times, aloud or internally. I forgive myself. I release the weight of shame and guilt. I am worthy of compassion and love. We'll repeat these again, but as you repeat them, I want you to imagine these words soaking into your body like a golden light. It's filling every cell, spreading out from your heart center through yourself and through this younger version of yourself as well, connecting you. So I forgive myself. I release the weight of shame and guilt. I am worthy of compassion and love. I forgive myself. I release the weight of shame and guilt. I am worthy of compassion and love. I forgive myself. I release the weight of shame and guilt. I am worthy of compassion and love. I want you to keep one hand on your heart and move the other down to your belly and say to your body, to your nervous system, and to your emotions, I am safe. I am free. I choose love. Now, take 3 deep breaths and imagine the roots grounding you into the earth from the bottoms of your feet, releasing any leftover heaviness, any leftover shame, guilt, or pain into Mother Earth so that she can transmute it back into light. And take 3 deep breaths here. When you're ready, if your eyes were closed, you can open them again. I hope that you enjoyed that little mini love session. Feel free to do that as many times as you need. And if anything came up, go ahead and write it down if you want to. Burn it. Otherwise, feel more into it. Don't think more into it. Don't rationalize it. Just allow what came through to come through. All right, let's do word for today, please, universe. While I'm shuffling, I think there's some other affirmations that you can use that I really like when it comes to like reframing how you view what you did that made you feel guilt and shame. And my personal favorite one that I tell myself when these feelings come up that is the most powerful for me is I forgive myself and I choose growth over punishment. Because again, that's kind of the root of it is that you're punishing yourself. And in order to stop that, you have to truly forgive yourself with love and compassion. So whenever I start to feel those things, I just say, I forgive myself and I choose growth over punishment. Sometimes these cards are so finicky, they don't want to pop out. May I please have just one? Just one card, please? No, 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 no. Maybe this is the wrong deck. Let me go grab another deck and see if the other deck wants to be included today. I think this one said, no, thank you. I'm good though. Otherwise, maybe we won't have a card of the day. Let's go see. Let me grab another one. Okay, let's see. Okay, well, this happens sometimes. Sometimes it does not, but it happened today. The universe has said, nope, no cards for you. We don't have anything else. Jess's message was so poignant, we don't want to take away from it by adding anything else. So I'm imagining they're saying. But nope, no card today. So I hope nobody wanted one because you're not getting it. Anyway, I think you're all amazing. And I love that you're on a growth journey because that just shows that you deserve so many amazing things. You are so worthy of love. You deserve all of the best. I love you, and I'm so happy that you tune in and hang out with me. And I would love even more if you would connect with me, whether that's on social at jess.solstice, SOULSTICE, whether it's signing up for any of the services that I offer, psychic readings, one-to-one coaching, group coaching, and also remember to rate, like, subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, whatever you'd like to do. Share it with your friends. Share it with anyone who needs to hear this kind of episode or any of the others I've created. I really appreciate it so I can continue to do this kind of work with you. So I hope that everyone has a fantastic week, fantastic weekend. You deserve love, and it starts within yourself. Bye.